The War of 1812 was declared when America wanted to become a nation to be reckoned with. Another reason it was declared was because the British were stopping American ships and impressing the sailors. Impressment was a horrible act of taking men and forcing them to work on the ships. The British impressed almost 15,000 American men between 1793 and 1812.
A quote from James Stearns. A U.S. seaman impressed into the British Royal Navy in 1809. With much abuse, they forced me out of my bed, not suffering me to take anything except for my trousers. In this miserable condition, I was taken aboard their ship, but did not think to be detained there for 7 years. Had I known my destiny, I would have committed the horrid crime of self-murder.
This is the declaration of war in 1812, which President James Madison signed.
The attack at Havre was part of a bigger plan by the British, to cause havoc around the Chesapeake Bay, to draw American soldiers away from Baltimore, so they could take Baltimore without much fighting. On April 29th, the British attacked Elkton and Frenchtown. May 3rd, Havre and Principio. On May 5th, Fredericktown, and on May 6th, Charlestown.
Commodore John Rogers was from Havre de Grace and fought in the War of 1812 in Fort McHenry and took down 24 ships. And that is why some people think that the British attacked Havre de Grace.
When the British barges sailed into the harbor of Havre de Grace, the Americans were the ones that fired the first shot. As soon as we did, the British jumped into action. There were many older men left to defend the city, since most younger men were defending Baltimore. The British on the barges were busy firing concrete rockets, which killed one American militiaman, Mr. Webster. Most of the men fled after the first shot. Only a few men remained in the town. John O'Neill was one of the older men defending Havre de Grace. He was manning a cannon in the battery known as the Potato Battery. A battery is a group of cannons. We spoke with a local archaeologist, Mr. William McIntyre of Havre de Grace, about a number of things, including where the cannons were. We think there were 2 batteries, one near the lighthouse and one at the top of the hill near the town. There was a lot of controversy about this, but this is probably the most likely.
When the British came into Havre de Grace, they used American cannons against the town. They burned about 2/3 of the 60 buildings in the town. They looted from all the houses. They killed pigs and even stabbed partly through some of the pigs and left them to run. They shot horses and sunk a ferry.
John O'Neill was captured by the British. He was sentenced to death because he was an Irishman and was born in Ireland, which was under British rule. He was considered a traitor. Afterwards, he wrote his account on what happened that terrible day. A statement from John O'Neill, dated May 10th, 1813.
No doubt, before this, you have heard of my defeat on the 3rd of May. We were attacked by 13 English barges at the break of day. We had a small breastwork erected with 2 6 and 1 9-pounder in it, and I was stationed at one of the guns. When the alarm was given, I ran to the battery and found but 1 man there, and 2 or 3 came afterwards. After firing a few shots, they retreated and left me alone in the battery. The grape shot flew very thick about me. I loaded the gun myself without anyone to serve the event, which you know is very dangerous, and fired her. When she recoiled and ran over my thigh, I retreated towards the town, and joined Mr. Barnes at the nail factory with a musket, and we fired on the barges while we had ammunition, and then retreated to the commons, where I kept waving my hat to the militia who had run away, to come to our assistance, but they proved cowardly, and would not come back. At the same time, an English officer on horseback, followed by the Marines, rode up and took me with 2 muskets in my hand, I was carried on board the Maidstone frigate, where I remained until released 3 days since.
Here are 3 reasons that John O'Neill might have been released. First, Brigadier General Henry Miller sent the British a letter telling them that if they killed John O'Neill, he would kill 2 of their men. This letter was dated May 8, 1813. Second, John O'Neill's daughter, Matilda, who was 16 years old, rowed out in a boat to beg for her father's life. This story is written on the memorial canon. This is the writing which is inscribed in John O'Neill's memorial canon. I quote, John O'Neill served the gun single-handed during the British attack upon the Havre, May 3, 1813. Until disabled and captured, he was released from the British frigate Maidstone through the intercession of his young daughter Matilda, to whom Admiral Cockburn gave his gold-mounted snuff-box in a token of her heroism. The third reason. Matilda rode out with a group of townspeople to beg for Mr. O'Neill's release. The day after O'Neill's capture, a party made up of 2 townsmen, Miss Matilda O'Neill, and an older lady, Miss Oliver, went to ask for the prisoner's release and the return of some property. Matilda took her father's commission in the militia to demonstrate that he was a legitimate combatant and not a traitor. We believe that the third possibility is the reason for John O'Neill's release. This is because the letter was written after John O'Neill was released. The second possibility seems very unlikely that Matilda would go out by herself. There seems to be no proof except for the memorial canon. The third possibility seems to make the most sense. There is a snuff box, and on her gravestone it says, Heroine of the War of 1812. The Battle of Havre was important because it inspired many people to stand up against the British. The heroism of the citizens of Havre incited the anger of the British, which led them to pillage and burn the whole town.
People all around America were angered at the British brutality. Because of the violence, some towns surrendered when they saw the British. However, many were inspired to stand up and fight the injustice. The people of Havre expressed their gratitude to John O'Neill by appointing him as their first lighthouse keeper. Philadelphia honored him by presenting him a sword which was inscribed, Presented to the gallant O'Neill for his valor at Havre by Philadelphians, 1813. Even though some towns quaked in fear of the British, after the burning of Havre, many were inspired to stand up for freedom.